LoveLore Library. Chapter 1352, Feng Ruqing's misunderstanding deepened too. Of course, Nan Xian also did not bully Zhou Ming. He did not use any spiritual force too. He simply fought with his bare fists, landing punches on Zhou Ming's face. It was unclear why Nan Xian did not hit him anywhere else, but purely focused landing blows on that handsome face of his. Using just a fist, Zhou Ming had no way to resist Nan Xian. His face was smashed beyond recognition. Qinger, Nan Xian wouldn't beat Zhou Ming to death, right? Nailin Yan walked over to Feng Ruqing. Her gaze when looking at Nan Xian was a little odd. She felt that Nan Xian was taking personal revenge instead of having a legit reason to do so. Using the opportunity to bully Zhou Ming. No. Feng Ruqing smiled faintly. Nan Xian knows where to draw the line. He isn't that kind of person. Nailin Yan let out a sigh of relief. She had yet to speak up again when Gui, who was by the side, said in dissatisfaction, "Vixen. Nan Xian is using an excuse to take personal revenge. Just see how ruthless he is. Although watching him is quite satisfying, but beating someone up is still not right." The vixen was too violent. There was not the least bit gentleness. On the contrary, when Xiaoqing sees how gentle she was, perhaps she would leave with her and abandon that vixen. Just thinking about it made her happy. Feng Ruqing felt dumbstruck. If you didn't say the latter sentence, perhaps I would really have believed in you. Nan Xian is not that kind of person, Feng Ruqing explained seriously once again. The state preceptor has always been gentle. He is doing it to help Zhou Ming. Furthermore, Zhou Ming has always liked the state preceptor and does not harbor any hatred for him. How did the idea of faking an excuse to take personal revenge come about? Gui stared at Feng Ruqing in a daze. What kind of bewitching medicine did Nan Xian use on Xiaoqing? She did not even allow others to talk badly about him, not even a single sentence. This Nan Xian was obviously faking an excuse to take his personal revenge. Otherwise, why was he not beating him at other places but just purely aiming at his face? Not long after, Zhou Ming's nose was bruised and his face swollen. His face no longer looked like his face. Sober yet. Nan Xian looked at Zhou Ming, his voice was light and indifferent. With a rumble, Zhou Ming's body collapsed backward. When he collapsed, his evil, cold gaze slowly recovered the warmth it had before. His gaze was fixated on Nan Xian. Me for extra chapters. You have finally arrived. The marks on his face slowly disappeared as the corner of his lips curled upward into a smile. I knew you would come, so I waited for you to come. When Hu Qing was around, he had no other choice, and could only use this method to stall the time. Otherwise, with Hu Qing's hatred toward Xiaoqinger, he was fearful that Nan Xian would not make it in time. Good thing Nan Xian did not disappoint him. He finally came. And all the risks he took was worthwhile. Feng Ruqing was just about to take a step forward when she stopped. It was also because she was stunned that she was not able to catch the falling Zhou Ming. His body fell to the ground heavily. Her face was a little dark. This bastard, did he really want to fight with her for the state preceptor? To think that she had considered him a good friend. In the end, he was actually harboring such thoughts toward the state preceptor. Of course, Feng Ruqing could not be blamed for misunderstanding. After all, when Zhou Ming crashed to the ground, the words he spoke did not just make Feng Ruqing misunderstand, even other people had the same misunderstanding. However, seeing Zhou Ming, who had crumbled to the ground and could no longer get back up, Feng Ruqing gently sighed and finally decided to walk forward. She took out a bottle of spirit herb soup, which she had preserved, and carefully fed it to him. Why was he Zhou Ming? He was different from those despicable, flirtatious people who tried to hook up with her state preceptor. She could not leave him to die. Gu Yi looked at Feng Ruqing feeding Jiu Ming the spirit herb soup and asked. Xiao Qing, how long ago did you make this herbal soup? Chapter 1353, Feng Ruqing's misunderstanding deepened. Feng Ruqing pondered for a while. It should be about a year ago. 1 year. Gu Yi's facial expression shifted as terror filled her gaze. It is a herbal dish, not a herbal pill. Xiao Qing has actually left it for a year. She has given Jiu Ming a rancid spirit herb dish. Why? Feng Ruqing turned her head around to look at Gu Yi, asking with a gaze that clearly showed she did not understand the reason behind her question. Gu Yi shuddered and gave her an awkward smile. No. Nothing, a reminder to never ever faint in front of Xiao Qing. Who knows if she would feed you some rancid spirit herb dish. Do you wish to drink some? Feng Ruqing looked at Gu Yi like she had an epiphany. Don't worry, I still have a lot here. Some are 1 year old, some are 2 years old. I have them all. You can drink them anytime you want to. Gu Yi was left speechless. No. I don't want to. Terror was clear on her face as she deeply suppressed her shuddering heart. I am not very hungry. You should leave it all to Master Jiu Ming. I am not a greedy person. Oh, Feng Ruqing replied. I have a lot here. I have enough to supply for you. If you wish to drink, you can do so anytime. Gu Yi was silent. She did not only not want to drink the spirit herb dish in Feng Ruqing's hands. She was even considering whether she should eat at Paramount again in the future. Thinking about her own life, the spirit herb dish she got from Xiao Qing should be enough. She would never step into Paramount again for the rest of her life. Nan Xian did not even look at Jiu Ming, who lay on the ground as he swept Feng Ruqing into his embrace. Nan Xian. Feng Ruqing hesitated for a bit. How did you stop him from using his spiritual force? Nan Xian lowered his gaze as he looked at the blood stain on Feng Ruqing's shoulder as he frowned lightly. Why didn't you take the spirit herb dish yourself? Oh, that has already been kept for a year. I don't wish to drink it. I will make a new batch later, then it will be fine, me for extra chapters. Although these spirit herb dishes would not expire when kept in the medium, knowing something and accepting it are two different matters. She would definitely not drink a spirit herb dish that had been kept for a year. Nan Xian raised his hand and a dark green fruit appeared in his hand. The fruit was crystal clear and looked very beautiful, like an emerald, attracting everyone's attention. Emerald spirit fruit. Gu Shi was a little shocked. When the rest of the people heard Gu Shi's words, they did not respond immediately. After a while, they stared at the emerald spirit fruit in Feng Ruqing's hands in astonishment as they registered the words. There was a holy mountain in Sangyu mainland known as Emerald Spirit Mountain. Rumors had it that there was an ancient tree on Emerald Spirit Mountain and that the tree was about 1,000 years old. It already became a spirit and knew how to hide away from passers-by, so there were very few who had seen this tree. Naturally, this tree also got its name from the mountain and was known as Emerald Spirit Tree. The fruit that was produced by Emerald Spirit Tree could heal the blood and flesh of an individual. For example, if someone cut off a piece of flesh from your body, Emerald Spirit Fruit could help the wound recover, returning it to the state before it was injured. As long as it was not a missing limb or broken thigh, or those serious internal injuries that left a person half dead, the fruit could bring about healing. Even if one's body had a serious external injury but did not break a limb, there was nothing Emerald Spirit Fruit could not heal. However, Feng Ruqing was just wounded by a blade and she was being given an Emerald Spirit Fruit to heal it. Was it not too much of a waste? The wound from the blade could be simply bandaged, and with some application of Jin Chuang medicine and waiting, it would slowly heal. Who would be so wasteful to use emerald spirit fruit to heal this kind of wound? However, Feng Ruqing happily took a bite as if she did not know the value of emerald spirit fruit. Chapter 1354. Feng Ruqing's misunderstanding deepened, for the taste of emerald spirit fruit was not great and was even a little bitter. However, since it was given by Nan Xian, it tasted sweet when she ate it. Gu Shi sighed and looked at Nan Xian before looking at his ignorant daughter with a helpless expression. He finally knew how his own daughter had lost herself to that man. Besides the difference in cultivation, there was also pampering. Nan Xian had pampered Feng Ruqing to the extreme. He was responsible and courageous. His own daughter, besides acting coy and cute, it seemed like she did not have any other abilities. I have finished eating. Feng Ruqing raised her head and looked at Nan Xian. Now you can tell me. How did you make Jiu Ming's spiritual force disappear? Nan Xian lowered his gaze as a hint of smile, warmth, and pampering could be seen in his eyes as he looked at Feng Ruqing, who was in his embrace. I am not sure what exactly are the changes going on in his body, but I could make a guess or two. His changes should be related to the marks on his face. It was as if he was being controlled by someone else. He paused for a moment before continuing. After that, it was not me who has caused his spiritual force to disappear. It should be Jiu Ming suppressing his own strength that has made him unable to use spiritual force. However, his body was agile. I could only use such a method to make him sober. What he meant was, I did not intentionally beat him up. I did it all to make Jiu Ming sober again. I trust you. Feng Ruqing smiled. Gu Yi was stunned. She seemed to never have thought that Nan Xian would be such a scheming bitch. He was obviously using that as an excuse to take his personal revenge, and he had made it sound perfectly logical. Once seeing Feng Ruqing's expression that was without a doubt toward him, Gu Yi harumphed without saying another word. That was fine. She could not win against Nan Xian now, but in the future, there would be opportunities. When she married second uncle, she would become Nan Xian's elder in the future. She could use her identity as an elder to suppress him, making him unable to solely dominate Shaoqing. Feng Ruqing had not said more to Nan Xian when she realized that something was not quite right. Logically speaking, after being fed the spirit herb dish, Jiu Ming should recover. Why was it that he was still lying on the ground without any signs of stirring, looking as if he were dead? Her heart suddenly trembled. Could it be that my spirit herb dish has been left for too long and it has become poisonous? Is Jiu Ming poisoned to death by me? Gu Yi was so touched that she almost cried. Her Shaoqing finally realized that the spirit herb dish that was a year old was probably inedible. That was just great. In the future, she did not have to worry that Shaoqing would feed her expired spirit herbs dishes anymore. Me for extra chapters. Nan Xian lowered his head to glance at Jiu Ming. He's tough, he won't die. Oh, that's good. Feng Ruqing subconsciously exhaled in relief. Spirit herbs are very expensive. I still have many spirit herb dishes stored in the medium. If it is no longer drinkable, then that would be such a waste. Gu Yi's face turned green. This was the first time that she had the desire to move away from Feng Ruqing. After all, expired spirit herb dishes were too dangerous. She was worried that her life would be in danger. However, it would be fine. Feng Ruqing smiled. Just now, Yi was eyeing my spirit herb dish. She wants it. If it is no longer drinkable, I will give it to Yi to drink. I can't waste it. Gu Yi was speechless. Could she not say such horrifying words in front of the person she was talking about? In the future, could she still happily play with her? Sure. Nan Xian smiled gently and pat Feng Ruqing's head. My Qing'er has always been frugal. Naturally, she would not waste. When the other people saw this scene, they kept feeling like they were being ruthlessly force-fed dog food, torturing them till their bodies and hearts felt exhausted. Furthermore, was no one caring about Master Jiuming, who is unconscious on the floor? Aren't all of you very concerned about him just a while ago? Chapter 1355. Those who show off their affection are dogs. Those who show off their affection are like dogs. The gazes of the crowd were filled with anger and frustration as the way they looked at Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian was not very friendly. Good thing Feng Ruqing very quickly glanced over at Jiuming as she frowned slightly. Nan Xian, why is he not waking up? Not sure, Nan Xian calmly shook his head. I guess it is because he used too much energy just now and has temporarily fallen asleep to rest. Perhaps after a period of time, he will naturally wake up. Alright, Feng Ruqing finally felt relieved. She raised her head and looked at Zhong Fu and the rest of his people. Zhong Fu's face contained panic as he clenched his fists tightly and his whole body shook. Feng. Maiden Feng. You. All of you, not bringing up the sentence Hu Qing had left behind before he ran off. Looking at Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian's relationship, his whole body felt cold and his face was full of fear. At this moment, he finally recalled why the name Nailan Yen sounded so familiar. She was the woman Gu Zhenyang had kidnapped back then. It was also Nan Xian's future mother-in-law. Zhong Fu subconsciously raised his hand to wipe the sweat on his forehead. Seeing that Feng Ruqing did not speak, he continued to speak hesitantly. My son has lost too much blood. Can I bring him for treatment first? Feng Ruqing slowly walked toward Zhong Fu. Dressed in red, she was a stunning beauty that could bring cities to their knees. Her sleeves fluttered in the wind. In the beginning, were you scolding me? Zhong Fu's face changed. No. I was not. Oh. Feng Ruqing was a little surprised. You were not scolding me. Then it must have been your son who has scolded me. Little Pot. She was just about to call for Little Pot when she suddenly noticed that Little Pot had been sent flying far, far away. She guessed that it would not be able to return any time soon. Therefore, she paused. Will you slaughter Zhong Yi for me? The maiden's words were so light and breezy, it was as if she was saying something as simple as slaughter this pig for me. Maiden Feng. Zhong Fu gritted his teeth. This matter is unrelated to my son. It was me who scolded you. It has nothing to do with my son. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing tilted her head and smiled. My apologies. It was me who remembered it wrongly. It was your son who was scolding me. Furthermore, you are related to Qin Feier. Her parents have snatched my younger brother away and even used my brother's blood as a drug primer to treat Qin Feier. You and her are father and daughter. Do you think you are able to detach yourself from this matter? The whole place turned silent the moment Feng Ruqing finished speaking. Qin Feier trembled. She never thought that all the effort she put in for so long would end up being so easily trampled over by Feng Ruqing. Why did so many people in this world support Feng Ruqing? Why did she not need to work hard, yet she was able to obtain the things that other people worked so hard and so long for? In the quiet assembly venue, Zhong Fu suddenly kneeled down. He was crying pitifully as snot flowed from his nostrils, looking extremely distressed. Ancestor, taking into account my ignorance, please forgive us father and son. You can deal with Qin Feier however you see fit. Father. Zhong Yi forgot the pain in his arm as he stared at Zhong Fu in disbelief with eyes widened. Zhong Fu shouted in anger, "Shut up. You better shut up. This was all because of you, jerk. I brought Qin Feier back purely to figure out how she has suddenly broke through to advanced holy warrior tier in a year. If it were not for you getting interested in that Qin Feier, I would never have taken her in as my adoptive daughter. I just wanted to use that to prevent you two from getting together. Qin Fei's figure swayed and almost crumpled to the ground. Her eyes were filled with hatred as she looked at the people there. She had always thought that Zhong Fu admired her and loved her, and that was why he had taken her as his adoptive daughter, giving her the highest possible glory. Chapter 1356, Hatred as endless as the sea. It all felt ridiculous now that she found out it was only because he was worried that Zhong Yi would want to marry her and had thus used such tactics to stop them. Ha ha ha. How ridiculous. Qin Fei was laughing so hard she almost teared. She only managed to calm down after a long time before turning to look at Feng Ruqing coldly. I don't understand why it is that the things I desperately want are so easily placed into your hands by others, without you having to pay any price or put in any effort. We are both humans, but you constantly receive the affection and care of the heavens. No matter what kind of wrongdoings you do, there is someone there to help you absolve yourself from the consequences. When you meet with danger, there is always someone who is there to help you. The person I likes you. My brother became your brother. I had become the daughter of the Divine Herbs sect master after much difficulty, but before I even managed to enjoy the luxury and blessings, it was once again destroyed by you. From the beginning to the end, I simply don't understand. Why do you keep making things difficult for me in every possible way? Why? Her tears flowed like a spring. Her hatred was endless as the sea. Before her hatred was fully vented, a trim and slender foot had already landed on her face with a thud, sending her flying. Fair. Zhong Yi felt so much heartache that even tears had fallen. He looked at Feng Ruqing in anger. Before he managed to even voice an angry word, Zhong Fu had already leaped over to his side and immediately covered his mouth. Servants. The young master has lost too much blood and is not clear-headed. To prevent him from simply talking nonsense, quickly bring him away. The Divine Herbs sect had suffered enough because of Qin Fei. Zhong Fu did not even bother about his own reputation and had cried and begged in front of the crowd. How could he possibly allow Zhong Yi to speak inappropriately? Qin Fei should settle the consequences on her own for the troubles she created. What right did she have to drag down the Divine Herbs sect along with her? Feng Ru Qing. Qin Fei's already pale face looked even more embarrassed. She raised her head and looked at Feng Ruqing with her eyes glinting in hatred. You, Feng Ruqing stepped on Qin Fei's face again without bothering to be polite, forcefully stepping on her twice. Me for extra chapters. No choice. I had never liked you from the start. Naturally I would keep finding fault with you. No matter where you try to hide, I will find you. Whichever corner of the earth you try to hide yourself, I will find you. The crowd stared at Feng Ruqing in a daze and suddenly shuddered, feeling the chills. This woman was too ruthless. She was not someone they could afford to offend. After a while, Feng Ruqing removed her foot from Qin Fei's face and the latter finally managed to have a breather. She gritted her teeth. You didn't like me and have thus targeted me. Feng Ruqing, you are so malicious, you and Nan Xian will not be together for long. Sooner or later you and him will, Russell. A cold light flashed past. Blood spilled from Qin Fei's face, dyeing her whole face red. The man clearly and breezily said as his gaze was cold and chilling, she has said too much. I don't like it. After that, he paused for a moment before continuing, also, I am more ruthless than you are. So, the both of us will definitely be able to be together for a long time till the ends of our lives. So. The state preceptor exploded in anger mostly because of what Qin Fei had said regarding them not being able to be together for long. Yes, her state preceptor was forever so adorable. Feng Ruqing lowered her gaze to look at Qin Fei and smiled. The state preceptor is not wrong. You do indeed speak a little too much. Furthermore, don't you have some idea in your heart the reason why I dislike you? You try to snatch my man, openly entering the room, torturing my brother, ruining my reputation everywhere. Therefore, if I am considered malicious, when dealing with people like you, then indeed, I need to be malicious. Chapter 1357. Let her die. Further away in the beginning, there were still people who pitied Qin Feier. Because the sentence of wanting to take a life just simply because of disliking someone was indeed a little over the top. Now, hearing Feng Ruking's words, they realized that Qin Feier had indeed done quite a lot of things. If it were them, they too had no way of forgiving her. To even give her a proper burial ground would already be considered treating her well. Qin Feier closed her eyes in despair. Perhaps she had finally understood that no matter what she said, it was all in vain. However, she was a little reluctant and dissatisfied. Dissatisfied that she was being trampled by Feng Ruqing and was subjected to her insults. Ching Ching. Feng Chen slowly walked toward Feng Ruqing with a faint smile on his handsome face. That pair of eyes were bright like a morning star, clear and touching. Qin Feier's dark, gloomy face lit up as she turned her head to look at Feng Chen, her eyes sparkling with hope. No matter what, Chainer had been her brother for many years. Her parents had committed countless mistakes and wrongdoings previously, but she was innocent. She had merely been implicated. So, did Chainer understand this and plan to beg for mercy on her behalf? That should be it. Her Chainer had always been one who spoke coldly, but was actually warm at heart. He was heartless when he spoke, but his heart still remained gentle in the end, not willing to let her just leave this world like this. What's wrong? Feng Ruqing had just raised her sword up high when she heard Feng Chen's words. She paused for a moment and the sword also hung in the air, unmoving. She turned her head to look at Feng Chen. Her gaze reflected her confusion. Ching Ching. Feng Chen smiled faintly. Can you kill her a little further away? I do not wish to see her blood. At that very moment, Qin Feier's face turned ashy pale. She looked at Feng Chen in despair. Her face displayed pity as the corners of her lips tugged with bitterness. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she did not manage to say a word. All right. Currently, Feng Ruqing would agree to any request Feng Chen presented. With a wave of her hand, she picked up Qin Feier and expressionlessly threw her to Wu Yu. Kill her further away. Don't stain our family's Chainer's eyes. Wu Yu did not catch Qin Feier, letting her fall to the ground. He seemed to be a little disdained, but in the end, he had no choice but to pick Qin Feier up. In fact, he grabbed her by the collar. It was as if he was grabbing a hen. Me for extra chapters. When Qin Feier was being brought away, she raised her eyes to look at Feng Chen again. The young man had his back facing her. The breeze felt bitterly cold and she felt the strong coldness all over her body. It was just the back of his figure, yet it was like a sword plunging into her heart, causing her blood to drip and she was in so much pain. In this life, the two men she loved the most were Nan Xian and her younger brother Qin Chen. However, these two were also the people who had hurt her the deepest. Qin Feier closed her eyes and allowed Wu Yu to bring her away from this place. When she had left the place of assembly, she immediately felt a wave of pain in her chest as a sword pierced through her body. At the place of assembly, a maiden in a red robe that was brighter than blood looked beautiful and magnificent. She raised her hand and the sword that was dyed red fell into her hands from outside the place of assembly. Blood could be seen dripping from the blade of the sword. It was bright red and piercing to the eyes. Chainer, I have killed her away from here. Now, it won't taint your eyes. She had waited for Wu Yu to bring Qin Feier away from the place of assembly before taking action. It should not have tainted Chainer's eyes. Feng Chen gave a slight smile as he spoke. Yes. I feel happy when I see Qing Qing. However, when she appears, my good mood is gone. I no longer wish to see her again, and even more so, do not wish for her blood to flow in front of us in case it ruins my entire day. The crowd was left speechless. Was this little guy really Feng Ruking's brother? Why did his words sound even smoother than anyone else's? Nan Xian slowly raised his head as he looked at Feng Chen indifferently. Chapter 1358. Who was the ninth emperor? Feng Chen naturally felt Nan Xian's gaze. A smile appeared on his boyish face as he raised his eyes to look back at Nan Xian. His clear eyes had an unreadable light. Nan Xian's gaze darkened slightly. If Feng Chen was not Feng Ruking's biological brother who had the same mother, then perhaps he would have ended up like Zhou Ming. Qinger. Nan Xian did not exchange glances with Feng Chen for long. He looked at Feng Ruqing as the cold light in his eyes disappeared completely and was replaced by warmth. Did the Divine Herbs sect bully you just now? Feng Ruqing nodded vigorously. Yes. They helped Qin Feier to bully me. Nan Xian casually waved his hand and Zhong Fu's body suddenly flew away, crashing down in the middle of the crowd. This was very logical to Zhong Fu, however, the other people were so shocked that they felt even breathing was difficult. Although Nan Xian had defeated Zhou Ming and beaten him to the ground just now, his reason for doing so was because Zhou Ming himself had tried to restrain his spiritual force. Based on a bare fist fight, he had lost. However, Zhong Fu was a genuine holy warrior. Under Nan Xian's attack, he did not even have the strength to retaliate and did not even dare to beg for mercy. From the ruins of the assembly grounds, Zhong Fu climbed up with difficulty. He coughed and wiped the trace of blood at the corner of his lips. Master Nan Xian, I did not know that she was your woman. It was me who has not taught my son well, and thus resulted in this situation. However, I am still the sect master of the Divine Herbs sect. Could you consider letting me? Before the last word was out, Nan Xian's sleeve moved once again and with a boom, Zhong Fu, who had just climbed back up, was sent flying again, crashing into a pillar. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his face turned white. Idiot! Feng Ruqing sneered. Your mistake was not that you had not taught your son well, but rather you yourself are too stupid. Besides being stupid, Feng Ruqing slowly approached Zhong Fu. You are also weak. Merely being weak would have been fine, but to me, I cannot accept people showing my enemy's weakness. Those who show my enemy's weakness are also my enemies. Compared to Nan Xian, this young woman who was in front of him caused Zhong Fu to be more fearful. He clenched his fists tightly as his body swayed when he got up from the ground. You, his voice was dry and hoarse. Are the ninth emperor, me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing was expressionless. I am Feng Ruqing from Luyun Kingdom. Not that ninth emperor. Previously, Fu Chen had said it before. The ninth emperor had disappeared into the long river of history, and even the enemies of the ninth emperor back then were too numerous. After she died, those people had purposely wiped out all information regarding the ninth emperor. Besides those people from 1,000 years ago, people already no longer knew of the existence of the ninth emperor. Even if it were Haitian kingdom from Fangzhou mainland, they only knew of the ninth emperor from the ruins. However, Zhong Fu knew this name, the ninth emperor. Fu Chen had said before, since the ninth emperor had passed on, that the Divine Herbs sect got into a catastrophe and had long been annihilated by her enemies. Even the sect gate of the Divine Herbs sect was moved into the medium. Now, this Divine Herbs sect was still existing in this world. Who knew whether they were friends or foes? Perhaps the person who had harmed the ninth emperor back then was still around. Just like Hu Qing, he could possess other people's bodies to live again. If it was someone like that who was behind the Divine Herbs sect, then it would be a disaster to all those close to her. She would not allow such a thing to happen. Zhong Fu's body trembled. He was no longer able to understand if the words Hu Qing spoke before leaving were directed at Feng Ruqing. If it was not Feng Ruqing, could it be Zhou Ming? Or someone else from Deity's Gate? Chapter 1359, Settling Scores. Chapter 1359, Settling Scores. No matter what it was, just based on the cultivation Nan Xian had exhibited, he could no longer go against Feng Ruqing as he did just now. It doesn't matter whether you are or aren't the 9th Emperor. I think there is some misunderstanding between us. A flattering smile appeared on the corner of Zhong Fu's lips. His gaze was also full of a careful intent of currying favor. It was better to shamelessly live on than to die well. After all, he was the sect master of the Divine Herbs sect. It was a position that allowed him to act recklessly on this mainland. If he had just simply died during this assembly, was that not too much of a loss? Zhong Fu understood very well when he should lower his head. Yes. Feng Ruqing smiled. We do indeed have some misunderstandings. Zhong Fu subconsciously sighed in relief. The smile on his face became deeper, and without waiting for him to continue speaking, a foot ruthlessly came flying over, bringing along a fierce gust of wind. With a thud, his body once again fell to the ground embarrassingly. His limbs faced the sky and a shoe print could be seen on his face. Feng Ruqing rolled her sleeve. The misunderstanding between the Divine Herbs sect and I runs deep. 10 years ago, Gu Zhenyang from the Divine Herbs sect had snatched my mother away due to his own selfishness and has caused my family of 4 to be separated for years. If it were not for Gu Zhenyang's action of snatching my mother away, she would not have lost her memories and would not have been confined by the Tang family for over 10 years. She suffered all kinds of grievances and torture, and in the end, she almost died. You have caused my imperial father to be sick from missing my imperial mother for so many years. If it were not for Nan Xian helping me to find the phoenix and whatnot, my imperial father would not be standing here today. Si squinted as she looked at Nan Xian, deep in thought. So, that was why he had intentionally snatched away White Phoenix's stuff and made him cry back then. Feng Ruqing continued to move forward, closing the distance between them with each step. If it were not for Gu Zhenyang, I would not have not known that I had a younger brother, and I also would not have allowed him to stay with the Qin family to receive various injuries for so many years and even be insulted by others. If it were not for Gu Zhenyang, Feng Ruqing paused as a coldness flashed in her eyes. Lu Yun Kingdom would not have lost numerous lives. My maternal grandfather's family also would not have been so pitiful. My mother's iron-blooded troops would not have been prevented from gracing the battlefield for so many years. All these were caused by Gu Zhenyang. Now, you are trying to tell me that the Divine Herbs sect and I have a misunderstanding. Then, there are indeed too many misunderstandings between us. Zhong Fu raised his head while trembling, looking at Feng Ruqing who was approaching step by step. He finally understood that Feng Ruqing had not come because of Qin Fei'er. She had come to settle scores with him. Qin Fei'er was merely one of the reasons she had come to the Divine Herbs sect. In the end, even without Qin Fei'er, she would definitely have come to the Divine Herbs sect anyway. Me for extra chapters. It was all because there was too deep of a hatred between the Divine Herbs sect and her. However, all those things were done by Gu Zhenyang. He is already dead. How is it related to me? Feng Ruqing paused in her tracks as she looked at Zhong Fu expressionlessly. Without the implicit agreement of the Divine Herbs sect, without the Divine Herbs sect backing him up, how could just a mere Gu Zhenyang dare to be so blatant, going against the rules and harming the innocent? Zhong Fu's body trembled lightly and he said nothing more. Back then, my imperial mother had defeated Gu Zhenyang and sent him running. Gu Zhenyang was imprisoned because he was suspected of having violated the rules. If you had imprisoned Gu Zhenyang for life, how could everything that had happened after that happen? Feng Ruqing questioned him coldly. With every sentence she said, Zhong Fu's body would slouch a little more to the point where he crumbled to the ground, no longer able to stand up again. Indeed. If Gu Zhenyang had not appeared, then her mother would not have lost her memory. If her mother had not lost her memories, all those things would not have happened. Chapter 1360. Can you let my son off? Zhong Fu's throat went dry. This time, without Qin Fei's matters, when did you plan to come and settle scores? Feng Ruqing gave an indifferent smile. It would also have been this time. Therefore, the outcome of Divine Herb's sect today was truly unrelated to Qin Fei. It was just that, her two enemies had banded together and were coincidentally served to her in a single pot. Zhong Fu restrained his gaze, hiding the pain and regret in his eyes. My son is too innocent and ignorant and has a strong sense of justice. He doesn't know anything. He also does not know about the matter of your mother back then. As for Qin Fei and him, the matter was kept from him. Qin Fei is too shameless and he is innocent. Could Maiden Feng be merciful and let him live? You can deal with me however you like. Zhong Fu's heart and care toward his own son was real. He knew that Feng Ruqing would not let him go this time. He also only wished to help his son find a path of survival. Feng Ruqing lowered her gaze to look at Zhong Fu. If I let him go and his cultivation becomes strong one day, will he let me go? Her voice carried a hint of disdain and mockery. It made Zhong Fu's heart jolt. He also immediately understood the chilling meaning of Feng Ruqing's words. Maiden Feng, I guarantee that my son will not have the heart of vengeance. Feng Ruqing did not say anything but only looked at Zhong Fu with ridicule. Zhong Fu came to a decision. I can personally cripple his cultivation and make him unable to cultivate his entire life. I also can cause him to thoroughly lose his memory. Even if he were to beg on the streets or be an ordinary citizen, Maiden Feng, considering that I did not do anything to your mother, I beg you to leave a path of survival for my son. I beg you. Zhong Fu indeed did not directly harm her mother, but their family's sufferings and pain were all his doing. She would not forgive him. Never. If Zhong Fu was like Gu Shi and reigned in the people under him, then everything that is today would not have been. It was precisely because Gu Zhenyang was so used to being arrogant and having things his way on a daily basis that he would do such a thing like snatching other people's wife and caused a husband and wife to be estranged from each other and caused a mother to be separated from her children. Furthermore, just now Zhong Yi had intended to kill her for Qin Fei. If her cultivation was weak, or if there was no Jiuming and Nan Xian, perhaps she and Fengyun Manor would already have lost their lives at this Divine Herbs sect. Even Gu Shi would have been dragged into the mud with her. Me for extra chapters. Whoosh! A light flashed by Feng Ruqing's side. The crowd looked over and saw an exquisite, cute little boy standing by Feng Ruqing. The current Fu Qin still looked like a child. His little face was smooth and fair, like an egg, just like an immortal child in the paintings. His looks were so exquisite that the crowd was unable to avert their gaze. What was more shocking was the fact that Fu Qin suddenly appeared. His appearance was without any indication or signs. Nobody could understand how he had suddenly appeared. Mother. Fu Qin raised his chin. Detain this rascal. I want to interrogate him. The sword which Feng Ruqing had originally raised halted and she subconsciously kept it away. Just at this moment, Wu Yu returned. The corner of her lips lifted. All right. Wu Yu, tie him up first. We will deal with him after Fu Qin has conducted his interrogation. Compared to Gu Shi and the rest who remained calm, those who saw Fu Qin for the first time exhibited their shock. This boy, was the son of the Fengyun Manor's young lady. It should not be the case. His appearance was so mysterious, he did not even seem to be the least bit human. Gu Yi looked at Feng Ruching in surprise. You also brought your little spirit beast along. He suddenly appeared just now. Could it be that he knows teleportation? Chapter 1361. A jealous man is very scary. Fu Chen's face darkened as he glared at Gu Yi in anger. You are the spirit beast. Your whole family is of spirit beasts. How could those spirit beasts with low IQ be compared to him who was a spirit herb formed by the surrounding spiritual qi? This is too much. Mother. Fu Chen leapt into Feng Ruching's embrace. Your woman is bullying me. Boom. Suddenly a gust of fierce wind came rushing over. Fu Chen had originally intended to dodge it, but before he managed to do so, the gust of wind swept him up and threw him to the ground, leaving him looking disheveled. He was stunned for a moment before he regained his senses. Mother, the cheap father you have picked up has also bullied me. Nan Xian was left speechless. This time, Gu Yi smiled broadly. That's right, that's right. Shao Qing, did you see that? Nan Xian is bullying the young. Why don't you consider me as a partner? My temper is good and I have a good personality. I will even treat little Fu Qin as if he were my own biological son. The more she looked at little Fu Qin, the more she liked him. Although this little guy had snitched on her before, he called her Shao Qing's woman. Just this sentence alone made her feel nice and sweet as if she had just eaten honey. Nan Xian glanced at Gu Yi breezily. This glance left Gu Yi's smile frozen as she felt a chill run through her body. It was so cold that she shivered. Nan Xian's temper was really bad. Oh, that was right. Previously Mu Ling had even lied to her and had said that this wild man had a mild temperament. Hee hee. Just thinking about this, Gu Yi started gritting her teeth. Good thing she did not listen to Mu Ling's words and married Nan Xian. Otherwise, she might not even know how she would have been beaten to death. Comparatively, second uncle's temper was very good, just like Shao Qing's, gentle like the spring breeze. Yes, suddenly she missed second uncle. Especially seeing how Shao Qing and this bastardly man looked so loving together, she missed second uncle even more now. Father. Gu Yi turned her head to look at Gu Shi. Why did the Mu family's second uncle not come this time? This was the first time Gu Yi had taken the initiative to ask about Mu Qinyin. Gu Shi was so happy that he almost leaped up in joy. Was something about to happen? Me for extra chapters. That was great. His family's little daughter could finally be married. Gu Shi wiped the tear at the corner of his eye as he looked incredibly touched. Later father will bring you back, and we will discuss the matter of your wedding with Mu Qinyin. Also, don't just always pine for maiden Shao Qing. She already has a fiancé. You should know your boundaries. Females and females should not be too close to each other. Gu Yi was confused. Was her father sick again? Good thing that with Gu Shi's sentence, Nan Xian's expression grew much better. Manor Master Gu, there is no need for the Divine Herbs Sex Assembly to continue. You should take her away and leave. He paused for a moment. Also, she is not Qinger's woman. Qinger does not have any woman. The crowd looked at Nan Xian's extremely serious expression, and they were dumbfounded. So, Nan Xian had actually attacked Fu Qin simply because of what Fu Qin had said. They had originally thought that a jealous woman was scary, but they never thought that a jealous man was the real definition of scary. He had actually attacked someone. Looking at Feng Ruching, although Jiuming had treated her as his love rival, she had only abandoned and ignored him and did not attack him. After Feng Riching left Nan Xian's side, she walked over to Feng Tianyu and Nailan Yan. She directly stepped over Jiu Ming's body and had even carelessly stepped on his hand. When she felt that she had stepped on Jiu Ming, Feng Riching seemed apologetic. "I am so sorry. I did not notice you just now." Chapter 1362. A jealous woman is also very scary. The crowd was left speechless. Ops, they wanted to change their minds. A jealous woman was equally scary. Feng Riching raised her eyes and saw all those disbelieving gazes. She paused for a moment. "I really did not do it on purpose. It was just that I had accidentally forgotten about Jiu Ming." Silence ensued. "Hee, who would believe your nonsense? You are truly horrible." Seeing that even Gu Shi and the rest did not believe that she had not done it intentionally, Feng Riching shrugged and no longer bothered to explain herself. Either way, she did not do it on purpose. It was just that after she saw Nan Xian, she had neglected Jiu Ming. Who asked this old bastard to constantly pine for her man? However, Feng Riching frowned slightly. Jiu Ming has yet to awaken. Why don't we do it this way? Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, it is also about time for us to return to Fengyun Kingdom. We will bring him back first and send people to take care of him. As for Deity's Gate, she glared at the shirking Zhou Yu coldly. I will not interfere. Wait till Jiu Ming awakens, he will settle it himself. Jiu Ming was someone from Deity's Gate, and furthermore, these people had enmity with him. Be it Zhou Yu who had killed his mother or the rest of the people from Deity's Gate who had sneered and mocked him. All were to be settled by him personally. As a love rival and an outsider, she had no qualifications to interfere with Jiu Ming's matters. Gu Shi looked at Feng Riching doubtfully. Maiden Shao Qing, you didn't poison Jiu Ming to death, did you? Feng Riching. Am I such a person? Yes. Gu Shi went silent for a while. Although Shao Qing had killed quite a few women who had set their eyes on Nan Xian, those women had attacked first. It's fine. I believe that you will not kill Jiu Ming. Feng Riching was speechless. It was obvious that those women were personally killed by Nan Xian. The only exception was Qin Feier. Why was she the one to bear the blame? Gu Shi patted Feng Riching's shoulder. Jiu Ming is considered not bad. If he was not your love rival, I would have doubted his feelings for you and would have thus protected you. Originally Gu Shi had thought that Jiu Ming held a torch for Feng Riching, and that was why he was willing to sacrifice everything for her sake. Me for extra chapters. Until the final expressive sentence Jiu Ming had said before he lost consciousness. He finally understood that Jiu Ming was really a cut sleeve. One, it was a pity. There were many women in this world who wanted to be Jiu Ming's wife. Even though his birthmark had left many people fearful of approaching him, his cultivation and identity as well as his background and temperament were sufficient to cause many women to swarm around him. However, no one would have ever thought that Jiu Ming liked men. The sentence "I knew you would come" expressed so much yearning and anticipation. However, the love rival he had to compete against was Feng Riching. The little one, Shao Qing, was so good. Not to mention that Jiu Ming was a man. Even as a woman, he would not have been able to compete against her. Of course, if Jiu Ming would snatch your man, would be the first to not let him off. After all, only when Maiden Shao Qing married Nan Xian, and Gu Yi married Mu Qingyin, could they both be a family. Otherwise, would his own daughter not simply just be seeking death? Who knows if she would suddenly go against her word of being Nan Xian's aunt? The crowd exchanged glances as their eyes were full of surprise and pity. Jiu Ming really likes men. In the beginning, when Maiden Feng claimed that Master Jiu Ming is a cut sleeve, I didn't really believe it. If he isn't a cut sleeve, why did he wholeheartedly wait for Master Nan Xian's appearance? Even Manor Master Gu has said so. Then, it should be true. It's a pity. I have originally thought that even though his birthmark is a little unfortunate, I would still want to marry him. However, he likes men. I am not willing to even be his concubine. 1. A Chinese term for gay. Chapter 1363. His reputation was completely ruined. Zhou Ming would never have thought that his words would cause his entire lifetime of brilliance to be completely ruined. We should also disperse. The corner of Nailan Yan's lips curled up into a smile. It was not easy for us to have found Chainer. Naturally, we need to return home. Tianyu, we should also announce to the world that the Luyun Kingdom's prince has been found. Very well. Feng Tianyu lowered his eyes to look at the woman beside him. His eyes were full of adoration and smiles. The big assembly was thus dismissed. The Divine Herbs sect was already destroyed. The other people also had no need to stay on. Before Feng Ruqing left, she stopped in her tracks and smiled at Zhou Yu. You better return to Deity's Gate, don't leave. Wait for Zhou Ming to wake up and settle scores with you. If I find out that you run away, the end will definitely leave you feeling that dying is better than living. When that time comes, you will definitely regret not waiting for death properly. Zhou Yu, who was just about to run away, stopped in his tracks. His eyes were filled with terror as his voice was sharp. You and Zhou Ming are already love rivals. Why are you still helping him to deal with me? Feng Ruqing shrugged and smiled. No choice. Zhou Ming has helped me too much. As for me, I don't have many other problems. I just like to compensate for the shortcomings of those around me. Zhou Ming is someone to me. Nobody is allowed to bully him. Nan Xian looked indifferently at Zhou Ming, who was carried away by the guards of Fengyun Manor. His eyes were unmoving and his gaze was unchanging, but his hand was raised slightly. With a thud, the guard felt a jolt of pain in his hand and he was not able to hold Zhou Ming well, causing Zhou Ming to fall off his shoulders and onto the ground. The fall was quite bad. The guard was about to cry. I did not purposely drop Master Zhou Ming. Someone hit me just now, and that's why I didn't manage, at this moment. Everyone looked at Feng Ruqing. Feng Ruqing was stunned. If I say I didn't do it, would you all believe me? This time, even Gu Yi did not believe Feng Ruqing. With the relationship between the two, besides Feng Ruqing, who else would it be? Shao Qing. Gu Yi raised her head and puffed out her chest. It's fine. Even if you did it, I will support you forever. It was Zhou Ming who treated you as a love rival first. Everything you do is correct. Feng Ruqing was speechless. It really was not me. She looked at Nan Xian. State Preceptor, it really wasn't me. Yes, it wasn't you. Nan Xian smiled lightly and patted Feng Ruqing's head. Because it was I who did it, me for extra chapters. See? I told you it wasn't me. Why did no one believe her? Gu Yi looked at Feng Ruqing and then at Nan Xian. She was a little startled. Nan Xian, this time you are very manly to have protected my Shao Qing. You know how to block everything for her. I now see you differently. However, this does not mean that I will give up becoming a part of Shao Qing's family. I will fight you to the end. Feng Ruqing was speechless. Why was it that she felt the more she explained, the more these people did not believe her? Therefore, she would rather not say anything unnecessary and pursed her lips. Tie up the father and son duo of Zhongfu. Let's go back to Luyun Kingdom. Zhongfu's face changed. My son's body is not well. He has bled too much and is not up for long-distance travel. Maiden Feng, I beg you to let him off. Feng Ruqing glared at Zhongfu angrily. You better shut your mouth. If you say another word, believe me when I say I will kill the both of you now. Zhong Fu's voice turned softer. I believe you. Feng Ruking's expression finally turned better. Yes, finally, there was someone who believed her words. Imperial father, Imperial mother, Chainer, let's go home. The corner of her lips curved into a smile as she slowly spoke, remember to bring Jiu Ming along. I will get someone to take care of him properly. Chapter 1364, Luyun Kingdom. Not knowing how, after hearing Feng Ruking's words, the crowd subconsciously looked at Jiu Ming, who was lying on the ground. They seemed to have predicted that his life in the future would be very pitiful, and the pity they felt could be seen in their eyes. However, nobody cared enough about Jiu Ming, and they allowed the guard from Fengyun Manor bring him away. In Luyun Kingdom. Since the day of the battle, no one had dared to come forward and provoke them. The land was peaceful and flourishing. In the Imperial Palace. In the Imperial Study, Nalan Zhangqian angrily threw the memorial in his hand onto the ground. His livid face was full of anger. Eunuch Lin, send someone to check where that bastard, Feng Tianyu, has gone to. The corner of Eunuch Lin's lips twitched as he stood quietly by Nalan Zhangqian's side and said respectfully, His Majesty has instructed that no one is to investigate his whereabouts. Luyun Kingdom's matters, regardless of how big or how small, are to be decided by General Nalan. Nalan Zhangqian's face turned livid as his fists were clenched and his chest was rising and falling non-stop. His anger was overwhelming. Feng Tianyu, that death-deserving bastard. Bringing away my younger sister to enjoy life and leaving Luyun Kingdom to me. When he comes back, I will definitely not let him off. Eunuch Lin was already accustomed to Nalan Zhangqian's roars. He stood by the side with a smile without doing much. Even his words did not cause much of a stir in the Imperial Palace. After all, since His Majesty left, the Lord General would scold him a few times every day. It was as if this was the only way for him to vent the anger in his heart. As for the servants, they had long gotten used to it. At the same time, General Nalan's manor. Qin Yi held a letter and entered the master's room, panicking. Father, Jing'er is missing. What? The master was shocked, and the teacup in his hand slipped and fell to the ground, breaking into pieces. Me for extra chapters. He immediately stood up as his old face showed panic. What did you just say? Jing'er is missing. Previously, Xiao Yin, that little girl, has left without a word. How is it that even Jing'er has also run away from home? I am not sure. Qin Yi suppressed the chaos in her heart. He said that he needed to leave to settle something. However, Jing'er very rarely leaves Luyun Kingdom. What exactly is the matter that has left him no choice but to leave and settle it? The originally anxious master slowly calmed down after hearing Qin Yi's words. After a while, a fleeting flash of light appeared in his eyes. Xiao Yin, that girl, has disappeared first. Then, immediately after, he left too. Could it be that he has gone to search for that girl? Qin Yi's eyes lit up, but she was also a little doubtful. She hesitated for a bit before asking, really? Nalan Jing, this little guy, had finally grown up. He knew how to chase after her future daughter-in-law. The old master stroked his white beard as a wise light appeared in his eyes. I have already said this earlier. There is definitely going to be a show between these two. We don't have to be too worried. If Jing'er has gone to chase after her, that could not be better news. Perhaps it would not be long before they return together. Hearing this, Qin Yi felt quite a bit of relief. An elegant smile appeared on her face. After that, she paused for a moment before asking, His Majesty and the Empress have also already left for a year and a half. I wonder if they have managed to find His Highness, the Prince. Hearing this, the smile on the master's face slowly disappeared. He sighed gently as the corner of his lips curled up into a bitter smile. This grandson of mine has definitely suffered quite a bit over these years. I, too, don't know when he would be able to return. Hopefully His Majesty and Yennefer can find him soon, and their whole family can finally be reunited. Chapter 1365. The Emperor has returned. At this moment, a figure rushed in from outside. As the person was running too quickly, he almost fell head first onto the ground. Without waiting for the master to ask, he climbed up in a panic, panting. "Old General, my lady, His Majesty. His Majesty has returned." These words were like a heavenly surprise, shocking the master, stunning him to his spot. After being silent for some time, his old voice spoke. Did His Majesty and the Empress return together, or, reporting to the general, His Majesty and the Empress came back together with the princess and the prince? They have sent news back in advance. Now, they should already be at the city gates. The old general seemed a little odd. He turned his head somewhat stiffly to look at Qin. His Majesty has returned. He has even brought Qing'er and the prince back. Is it because of my old age that there is some problem with my ears and that I am hearing this wrongly? He wanted to believe these words, but he was also afraid that everything was all but real. Even his expression was nervous and cautious when he asked that. Qin was very happy, but when she saw how careful the old general was, she could not help but feel a tinge of sadness in her heart. Father, it is true. His Majesty and the Empress have returned. They have found the prince. Everyone has returned. It was as if the old general only dared to believe everything he had heard after hearing Qin's words. Finally, a smile appeared on his old face, and there was a happiness that could not be described. Quick, bring the soldiers of my Nalan family to the city gates to welcome His Majesty and the Empress' return. Ha ha ha. He laughed happily and marched out. Qin looked at the old general's departing figure and a smile appeared on the corners of her lips. It has already been so long. Ever since they found out that the prince was still alive, father has not been eating or sleeping well. It has been a long time since there was such great news that contributed to his happiness. Good thing. His Majesty and the Empress have brought back the prince and princess, and their family could finally be reunited. How great! Qin secretly wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes as she followed after the old general and left the residence. The sky in Luyun Kingdom was clear and bright, just like her current feelings. Me for extra chapters. In the Imperial Study. Nalan Zhangqian received the report from his guards and immediately stood up, throwing the memorial to the ground fiercely as he gritted his teeth. Did you just say that Feng Tianyu has returned together with my sister? Yes, Lord General. The guard was respectful. Ha ha ha. Nalan Zhangqian laughed out loud like a madman. His laughter was tinged with anger. Feng Tianyu, you bastard emperor, has finally returned. It has already been a year and a half. Nobody knows of the days I had to endure during this time. Every day I had to burn the midnight oil to read those memorials and have not been able to spend time with my wife for a long time. Even my dyer. I have not hugged her for a long time. All this is because of Feng Tianyu. It is he who made my liver ache. Made me unable to carry out my duties as a husband and as a father. I will definitely not let him off so easily this time. The crowd heard Nalan Zhangqian scolding, and the most they did was allow their lips to twitch as they remained calm. After all, in Luyun Kingdom, the only one who would dare to open his mouth and scold the emperor was Nalan Zhangqian alone. There was no other way. This matter was indeed because His Majesty was unkind and had left without a sound, throwing the whole of Luyun Kingdom into Nalan Zhangqian's hands with a single royal decree. Just look at Nalan Zhangqian. 18 months ago, he was still the agreeable, handsome, easygoing General Nalan. 18 months later, his face had turned pale and his lips were dark. Both of his eyes were bloodshot, and his hair had become so disheveled. Chapter 1366, The Emperor has returned too, and this was all because he had to review reports for His Majesty. Nalan Zhanqian had mentally stabbed Feng Tianyu over 1,000 times by now, so just berating him out loud was already very nice of him. Perhaps it was because he was recalling his tragic life for the past 18 months, Nalan Zhanqian then started to shed tears of sorrow and hate. He should have stopped his sister from marrying this bastard no matter what back then. If his sister had not married him, he would not have been the emperor's brother-in-law, all the more so, be left with this grave responsibility. Feng Tianyu. Nalan Zhanqian gritted his teeth in resentment. He swept all the reports to the floor and stomped his way to the imperial study room hastily. He was going to kill this bastard to let off steam. Forget status and righteousness, all he knew was that his days had been even worse than a dog's. At least, a dog could still hug his wife to sleep on quiet nights. And he. His wish of bearing another daughter was now gone because of Feng Tianyu, just like that. In a secluded part of the palace courtyard. A cry of surprise echoed through the whole courtyard. Even those who were training stopped in shock. Commander, Commander. His Majesty and Her Highness have returned, even the princess and prince have come back. That person dashed into the courtyard with a face full of surprise. Tang Zi's hand trembled and the long sword in her hand fell to the ground, resulting in a clear, crisp sound. In a flash, she appeared in front of that person and grabbed her arm. The Empress and Princess have returned. They've returned. Even her voice was shaking, the delight visible on her face. Her pair of clear eyes sparkled like the stars, so dazzling. 1.5 years, it had been 18 months. The iron-blooded troop was very different now. Back then, when the iron-blooded troop was under Nalan Yan's care, there were only women and no men. It was a pity that the troop was then handed over to Feng Ruqing. Me for extra chapters. Next to Feng Ruqing was one Nalan who viewed all women as love rivals. And so, Feng Ruqing had Tang Zi recruit some new blood. Now the iron-blooded troop consisted of an equal number of men and women. Moreover, in these 18 months, the iron-blooded troop had made countless breakthroughs. They never stopped cultivating and strengthening themselves so that they could continue fighting for their princess on the battlefield. Never giving up. Let's go and receive the Empress and the Princess. To Tang Zi, the Emperor and the Prince were not very important. They only cared for the Empress and the Princess. His Majesty was the Empress' husband, the Prince's father, so they were willing to give their lives to protect him. But after not meeting for 18 months, they only wanted to see Nalan Yan and Feng Ruqing. At the same time. At Lu Manor. Everything was a mess. Ever since Lu Fuyong had been stripped of his position, the whole of Lu family had moved into the inner courtyard. Their new environment could not compare to the Chancellor's manor, but it was still something. At least they did not have to live on the streets. In the inner courtyard, Lu Yuchen had a bottle of wine in his hand as he drank, bottoms up, as if being drunk was the only way he could feel a little better. The sunlight was warm, but it could not melt his cold and frozen heart. Lu Fuyong entered through the door and immediately saw Lu Yuchen drinking excessively. He frowned as disdain flashed in his eyes. Is this how a grown man behaves every single day? Why do I, Lu Fuyong, have a son like you? Lu Yuchen snorted and laughed coldly. He stood up, a little wasted, to stare at Lu Fuyong who was standing under the willow tree, provoking him. Chapter 1367, The Emperor has returned 3. This house was bought using my savings. If you look down on me, then beat it. I want to see just who in the whole of Lu Yun Kingdom would sell any of you a house. Let alone buying a house, they would even be scorned by peddlers while out buying vegetables. Some of the peddlers would not even sell them anything. Most of the time they would rely on Lady Lu to pick up some leftover ingredients. The Lu family still had substantial resources, so even if they were stripped of their status, they could still live a comfortable life. However, with the Lu family's current predicament, even if they had money, there was nowhere they could go. Servants refused to work at their house, tailors did not allow them to enter their shops, and pharmacies were not willing to sell them any medicine. Fortunately, the owner of the liquor store had received the grace of the Lu family back then, so now they could still have wine to drink. Lu Fuyong. A piercing voice called from behind. The disdain in Lu Fuyong's eyes grew without him even turning back to look. He flung his sleeves, about to leave, but the old woman in hemp clothing had already rushed over and given him a furious shove. After you've been seduced by that vixen, you no longer have eyes for both us mother and son, isn't that right? Lu Fuyong, I must have been blind back then to even see anything in scum like you. The old woman had her hands on her waist looking like a boorish shrew. Lu Fuyong snorted. Look at what you've become. Where are your elegance and sophistication? How different are you from those old women from the countryside? If I'm not sophisticated, then is that vixen who first seduced Yu Chen and then you sophisticated? She's been missing for 2 years now, but I know you still can't forget about her. Tell me, are you still hoping for that vixen to come back? I'm telling you, if she dares to come back, I will murder her. Ridiculous. Lu Fuyong swept the corner of his robes as his eyes filled with hatred. How was an aged and withered woman like her fit to become his wife? Shuang'er was still the best. She was so young and beautiful, he could never forget that even until today. Me for extra chapters. Lu Fuyong. Lady Lu raised her hand and gave Lu Fuyong a tight slap across the face. Lu Fuyong had never expected his wife to lift a hand against him so suddenly, so he ended up receiving it at full force. He was stunned at first before his eyes burned with fury. How dare a bitch like you hit me? If you weren't the one scorning the princess back then, I'd still be chancellor. It's your fault that I was dismissed, your fault that I was laughed at, and now you raise a hand against me. Lu Fuyong reached up and pulled Lady Liu's hair before giving her a vicious slap. The strength of a man and a woman was naturally different. This slap made half of Lady Liu's face swell up while blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. She glared resentfully at Lu Fuyong. This pair of husband and wife had now become a completely irreconcilable pair of enemies. Bitch, do you know how those people look at me when I go outside? Our family was the one who had given up on the princess. Back then, the princess fought the 6 kingdoms alone, and today, the whole of Lu Yun Kingdom worships her like a god. So no matter where I go, everyone would laugh at me. Even peddlers wouldn't sell me anything. And this is all thanks to a short-sighted woman like you. You're the one who has caused the Lu family's demise, you're to blame. He raised his hand again, ready to give her another slap. Suddenly, a strong arm appeared and grabbed Lu Fuyong's wrist firmly, stopping the latter's arm in mid-air, unable to move. That's enough. Lu Yuchen's deep voice sounded as if he was holding back his anger. Just what are you trying to do? That matter back then, mother, you, and me, were all at fault, you can't push all the responsibility to her. Chapter 1368, Lu Yuchen regrets humph. Lu Fuyong flung his long sleeve, tugging his hand behind his back. He glared coldly at Lu Yuchen. You're both the same. If it weren't for the two of you, our Lu family wouldn't have been this miserable, and Lu Fuyong, wouldn't have ended up like this. Look at yourselves, one is a shrew, another a drunkard. How could you even compare to Shuang'er's gentleness? Lu Yuchen's gaze was indifferent. He stared at Lu Fuyong like he was looking at a stranger. There were no other emotions behind his eyes. Lady Lu, however, was enraged. She lifted her hand again, but Lu Fuyong caught her wrist in a tight grip before she could do anything. That's enough. Do you still think you're that dignified and aristocratic Lady Lu from before? Both of you are nothing in the Lu family right now. He then shifted his gaze to Lu Yuchen with a cold smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. I heard that the princess returned with the state preceptor. Back then, you didn't listen to me and have divorced her. Now there's no use for regrets. Lu Fuyong's words were like a hammer smashing at Lu Yuchen's heart. A flash of hurt appeared in his eyes as he subconsciously took a few steps back. Lu Fuyong. Upon seeing the devastated look on her son's face, Lady Lu rushed toward Lu Fuyong like she had gone mad and bit down heavily on his shoulder. Lu Fuyong snarled in pain. With a forceful hurl, he pushed Lady Lu away. Mad woman. I have nothing more to say to you. Lu Fuyong's expression turned dark as he strode away to the back of the house. Ever since Tan Shuang had gone missing, Lu Fuyong had only seen his wife as an eyesore. Besides, Shuang'er's disappearance must have had something to do with her. She should take a look at how battered she has become. There is no grace left in that woman, how disgusting. Lu Fuyong. Lady Lu scrambled up and roared hysterically, I know you find me lacking now. Back then when I was with you, I was just like Tan Shuang. I had a great future ahead of me. I have even bore you a son, but look how you're treating me now. I must have been blind to have been married to you. Which woman has never been youthful? Whose fault was it that she had turned like this now? How could he put all the blame onto her? Was he not at fault too? Sorrowful tears streamed down from her eyes. Lady Liu's whole body was trembling a little as she glared with reddened eyes at Lu Fuyong's back. Me for extra chapters. Yet, her hysterical complaint only made him detest her even more. He left without ever looking back. Lady Lu felt her body go limp and had almost fallen to the ground. Fortunately, Lu Yuchen was standing nearby and supported her just in time. Yuchen, Lady Lu cried her heart out, feeling pained and despair. I have wronged you. If she had not been bewitched by Tan Shuang back then, had she not been adamant about wanting Tan Shuang to marry into their family, would they still have ended up like this? Even if Yuchen married a normal young lady, it would still be better than Tan Shuang. She was the one who had indulged her enemy that resulted in her losing both her son and her husband. Lu Yuchen went stiff. He stared down at Lady Lu, his body still swaying slightly from the alcohol. You have wronged me. His voice was low as he wore a bitter smile. But all of us are at fault. It was his love for beauties that he had looked down on Feng Ruqing, who then looked like a mountain. Chapter 1369. Lu Yuchen regrets too. If it were not for that, he would not have dismissed her. So, he paused. Saying anything more would be futile. I've already lost the right to stand by her side. Lady Lu suddenly reached up and held on to Lu Yuchen's arms. Her eyes sparkled. No, perhaps there's still a chance. Back then, you didn't spend a night with the princess, and that's why the state preceptor is willing to marry her. What if both of you spend a night together? Lu Yuchen was stunned. He had never imagined that his mother could still say something like this at such a time. His hand supporting her arms gradually loosened as a cold smile appeared on his handsome face. You think that our Lu family isn't miserable enough and you want to make it worse, don't you? The Emperor and Empress love the princess so dearly. If anyone were to do something like that to the princess, what do you think will happen to the Lu family? Moreover, it was not easy to get close to someone like Feng Ruching. To even think of forming an alliance with her through marriage. How ridiculous. Dream on. No, we still have a chance. Yu Chen, chastity is most important to a woman. If she has lost her chastity, she would definitely be with her first man. If you can become her man, perhaps, there is still hope for our Lu family. I guarantee that I will treat the princess better in the future and not scorn her as I did in the past. Lu Yuchen kept quiet. He stared at Lady Lu like he was looking at a stranger. Lady Lu did not notice his expression and grabbed on tight to his sleeve. Yuchen, only you can help the Lu family now. Look at how your father is treating me. If we can gain the prince's favor again, your father wouldn't dare to bully me anymore. Shove! Lu Yuchen raised his arm and gave it a hard swing, flinging away Lady Liu's hands. He laughed coldly. You have to know that I'm no match for the princess. You'll just be pushing the Lu family toward a place of no redemption, me for extra chapters. No, it won't happen that way. Lady Liu's eyes were bloodshot. As if she was lost in a trance, she continued, You're my most beloved son, how could I ever harm you? I'm doing all this for your own good. Why don't I ask for an audience with the princess? Ask her to meet you. If you two can meet, that means there's still a chance. The princess wouldn't really lose her affections so easily. At that moment, Lu Yuchen felt like he was talking to a wall. He let out a sarcastic laugh and turned to walk toward the entrance, ignoring Lady Lu. Lady Lu quickly rushed over, wanting to chase after Lu Yuchen. However, the moment both of them left the Lu family's gates, great news was being spread around on the streets. What wonderful news, the prince of our Lu Yun kingdom has been found. Empress Nailan loves her country and her people dearly, so I knew that a good person would definitely be rewarded. She must have played a part in the prince's safe return. Not just that, I have even heard that the princess has married the state preceptor while they were out on this expedition. Married? Is this true? Why is there no news of this in Lu Yun kingdom? Of course it's true. Because great news about the princess being pregnant has spread from the palace. If they weren't married, how could the princess be pregnant? Our Lu Yun kingdom really just gets one good news after another. On the streets, Lu Yuchen stopped in his tracks. The breeze of a summer's day was warm, but for some reason, he felt cold all over. So cold that he could not help but wrap his arms around himself. She's married. And even pregnant. Perhaps Lu Yuchen had never imagined that there would be a day he would feel so much regret. Those feelings were like needles viciously stabbed into his heart, making his chest ache so painfully. Chapter 1370. Lu Yuchen regrets. Lady Lu ran out in a frenzy and pushed away Lu Yuchen, who was standing frozen in front of her. She rushed over to the people who were just talking and grabbed their arms, her eyes filled with madness. What did you just say? The princess is married. She's even pregnant. That can't be. It's too fast. There's not even any news of this in Lu Yun kingdom, Lady Lu mumbled to herself, staring straight ahead in disbelief. She could barely regain her composure from this news. The young lady who just got pushed by her staggered and almost fell to the ground. She was already furious, but when she saw who had pushed her, the fury and sarcasm on her face deepened. Why, isn't this the madam of the Lu family? Back then, you were the ones who had given up on the princess, and now that the princess and the state preceptor have finally found each other, you're envious. In an instant, the gazes of everyone on the street were directed at Lady Lu and Lu Yuchen. Under their sharp glares, Lu Yuchen finally started to regain his senses. Perhaps it was due to shame, he did not look at Lady Lu and just turned to the opposite direction to leave. Yuchen. Lady Lu turned her head and saw Lu Yuchen walking away. She gritted her teeth and chased after him, grabbing and tugging at his arm. "Come with me, we're going to see the princess." "I don't believe that the princess would be this heartless." Seeing this stubborn side of Lady Lu, the others could not help but shake their heads and sigh. The princess had already rejected her countless times and the latter had even suffered enough losses in the process, but she did not seem to have learned her lesson. She was still delusional, hoping for the prince's forgiveness. How ridiculous. Back then, the Lu family had almost forced the princess to her death because of Tan Shuangshuang. They should be lucky that the empress did not destroy the whole family. Yet, now they were still trying to stir up trouble. "That's enough." Lu Yuchen's tightly clenched fists until cracking sounds were heard. He took a deep, heavy breath to push down the rage within his chest. "How long do you want to keep this up? The princess will never forgive the Lu family, ever." All this while he had already become aware of this truth. However, he was not willing to admit it and so he had drowned himself in alcohol, trying to use the intoxication to forget. Until now. After hearing that Feng Riching was pregnant, he felt like he had just been splashed with a bucket of cold water, sobering up immediately. It was true that ever since he had chosen to give up on her, their paths were already different and they would never cross. Me for extra chapters. Yuchen, Lady Lu stared blankly at Lu Yuchen. He was clearly still thinking of the princess, so why not try to fight for her? Was he going to give up, just like that? The Lu family. Lu Yuchen slowly closed his eyes. Feeling a lump on his throat, his voice trembled slightly as he said, "Can take no more of this torture, do you understand?" This Lu family could not afford to face any more crisis. Lady Liu's hand gradually fell. She felt reluctant but as she looked at Lu Yuchen's striking yet despairing silhouette, she ended up swallowing back the words she wanted to say. "Forget it," Lu Yuchen gave a bitter smile. "You wouldn't understand it. If you intend to be this stubborn, then go and look for her on your own. I won't ever go to her again." He did not want to see her indifferent gaze. Those eyes were more piercing than needles. "Yuchen." Seeing as Lu Yuchen was about to leave, Lady Lu became anxious. "Where are you going now?" He stopped in his tracks. He tipped his head up, staring dazedly at the blue sky. "I don't know either, but I won't be able to keep staying in this house, so you guys should take care of yourselves." Before he left, he paused again before continuing to say, "Father's heart will never return. You should start contemplating your own future, at most just, leave him." Chapter 1371. The pitiful Nalan Zhangqian. Lady Lu stared dazedly as Lu Yuchen's silhouette gradually went away. She felt a sudden emptiness in her heart as if something important was about to leave her. She panicked and quickly chased after him but ended up falling down from running too fast. When she lifted her head, her aged face was covered in tear stains. Her voice was hoarse and shaking as she called out, "Yuchen, don't leave your mother. I only have you now, please don't go." Lu Yuchen froze. He stopped in his tracks but only for a brief moment before he continued on without any care. He knew that as long as he stayed in this house, his mother would not give up on her thoughts. The Lu family today was already full of wounds, unable to take another blow. Only with his departure that peace could finally return to this family. Hence, he had to stop being soft-hearted, and he had to carry on. At the palace. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Donned in a yellow-colored robe, a man sat on the dragon throne with a stern look on his handsome face as he stared down at the many ministers before him. Next to the man was a woman in a phoenix crown looking strict and she too was dressed in yellow. In contrast to the dragon patterns on the man's robes, embroidered in front of her chest was a fiery golden phoenix. Her beauty was captivating, her beauty could destroy cities. Feng Riching and Feng Qin each stood beside the two people. Feng Ruqing's lips were curved up slightly as she gazed at these people before her. Some of these people do not recognize Feng Qin. Hence, when they saw him standing next to Feng Tianyu, doubt was visible in their eyes. However, they then recalled the rumors that have spread around Luyun Kingdom, and in an instant, they were alert and the way they looked at Feng Qin changed a little. Particularly the ministers who had unmarried daughters at home, they had started to plan in their minds on the possibility of their daughters becoming the Luyun Kingdom's crown princess. Even if not a crown princess, a simple concubine would do as well. Among the crowd, only the old general's muddled eyes changed from its initial ignorance to agitation as he fixed his unwavering gaze upon Feng Chen's face. This was not his first time seeing Feng Qin. Back when he first met Feng Qin, he was only a youth following behind Feng Ruqing. Oh, his name then was Qin Qin. Me for extra chapters. In 2 years' time, the boy that Qing'er had upped his game and already became his biological grandson. It was difficult to describe this feeling. Nalan Zhangqian remained unsmiling. His bloodshot eyes seemed savage as he stared fiercely at Feng Tianyu. His gaze was like a carnivorous jackal, wanting to swallow that bastard alive. Beloved ministers, Feng Tianyu intentionally avoided Nalan Zhangqian's hateful gaze and coughed. I'm sure you've all heard the news spread, so I have 2 things to announce today. Feng Tianyu paused briefly, his expression was stern. Number 1, Feng Qin is the son of the Empress. We have finally found him after so many years and he shall henceforth be the crown prince of my Luyun kingdom. No one should be disrespectful toward the crown prince. Feng Qin frowned slightly. Prior to this, Feng Tianyu had only said to publicly recognize him, but nothing about making him the crown prince. If he knew that Feng Tianyu was thinking of throwing Luyun Kingdom into his hands, he would have never come back no matter what. So, after hearing this, Feng Qin shifted his gaze to Feng Ruqing, pleading with his clear eyes. That pitiful look was hard for anyone to ignore. Feng Ruqing's eyes darkened. She subconsciously recalled how Cheer had exhausted himself for her in the past life to forcefully build a business empire from nothing. Chapter 1372, The Pitiful Nalan Zhangqian too. In this life, she could not bear to see him strain himself. She only hoped for him to live a peaceful life, and that would be enough. Nothing more. Father. Feng Ruqing pondered before continuing, it's better if Chainer remains a prince. He will not do as a crown prince. The ministers below them agreed with Feng Ruqing's words. After all, before the appearance of this prince, the whole of Luyun Kingdom belonged to the princess. Even if she was a woman, she was capable of becoming an empress. Now with the appearance of a prince, there was competition. She would most definitely be upset. Feng Ruqing was not bothered by these ministers' thoughts. She paused before shifting her gaze to the man with bloodshot eyes and seemed to be battered all over, Nalan Zhangqian. I think that our uncle is still young and full of vigor. If you want to concentrate on your cultivation, why not let our uncle continue managing the country? I'm sure our uncle would feel sorry and be willing to take up this task for his long-lost nephew. Nalan Zhangqian was speechless. At that moment, Nalan Zhangqian was so close to resigning out of anger. What the fuck do you mean by full of vigor? This father and daughter of the Feng family are all terrible people. You bunch of dogs, he resentfully pointed at Feng Tianyu and Feng Ruqing. Before he could finish his words, the old General Nalan threw an angry fist at Nalan Zhangqian's head. Stupid brat, who are you trying to scold? One of them is my son-in-law, the other my granddaughter. I dare you to spout even one sentence of reproach. Just do what you're told to do, stop babbling. Nalan Zhangqian held his head and looked at the old man, feeling aggrieved. Father, am I really your biological son? What? The old man snorted and said sarcastically, you don't want to tire yourself, so you want to tire my granddaughter or my grandson. I'm telling you, Nailan Zhangqian, you have to bear this task for them. Father. Nailan Zhangqian raged. Do you have any idea how long I have not kept my dire company? How long have I not spent time with my wife? I promised Dire to give her a younger sister, but you have made me work in the place of Feng Tianyu, that dog of an emperor. Have you ever considered my feelings? I too need my wife's love, me for extra chapters. Everyone was speechless. It seemed that Nailan Zhangqian's rage was wild. So much so that he even called the emperor a dog. However, Feng Tianyu seemed to not have heard it as a smile graced his handsome face. Then, that's settled. Brother-in-law, Luyun Kingdom will continue to be in your care for the days to come, as I still need to tour the lands and have fun with my empress. Nailan Zhangqian had to stifle this fit of anger within him with no means of venting. His tears of sorrow and grievance almost fell as his eyes were red. Suddenly, Nailan Zhangqian recalled that moment on the battlefield years ago where this dog emperor held his sister and passed him by, saying, "Brother-in-law, you've done well." It was ridiculous that he had felt touched back then. If he had known that today would come, I'd rather continue guarding the borders than return to Luyun Kingdom. To him, battles were so much easier than handling national affairs. In battles, he could do as he pleased, but if he were careless in national affairs, countless people would have to suffer. Feng Tianyu, Nailan Zhangqian's voice sounded lethargic, yet the fury in his eyes never ceased. You heartless bunch are just trying to push me over the edge, aren't you? Are you still an emperor of a kingdom? How could you just throw the country to a minister like me? Feng Tian smiled and said, "You're right, brother-in-law. Why don't I abdicate and give you the throne? 2. Chapter 1373, The Pitiful Nailan Zhangqian 3. As soon as he said that, the other ministers fell to their knees in fear. Your Majesty, that won't do. This is the Feng family's country, you mustn't relinquish it. Feng Tianyu's gaze turned cold as he looked down sharply at the ministers in front of him. This is between me and the general, you lot shall have no say. Nailan Zhangqian was already stunned the moment he heard Feng Tianyu's earlier words. A moment had passed before he regained his senses. He then rushed toward a guard, drew out the guard's sword, and held it to his own neck. Feng Tianyu, you're driving me over the edge. If you want to make me an emperor, I'll just die. I'd rather die than take up this position. Don't you try to force my hand. If you insist, just try and drag me from the depths of hell, I dare you. This group of bastards had been suppressing him for a year, and now, they wanted to throw the responsibility of sitting on the throne to him. How ridiculous. He, Nailan Zhangqian, had his own pride and would rather die than yield. Much less asking him to surrender to fate. The other ministers were dumbstruck. The throne was something that men would get blood on their hands fighting for, but for some reason, in General Nailan's eyes, it was like a piping hot potato. He would rather die than take it. If it were them, they might not have reacted in such a way. The throne was just too desirable to resist. Feng Tianyu had never expected that Nailan Zhangqian would be this determined. He was stunned. Brother-in-law, I was just joking with you, really. Don't be rash now, put down the sword, really. Nailan Zhangqian stared at him with doubt in his eyes. Of course, it's the truth. Feng Tianyu laughed bitterly. I actually don't think much of it, so General Nailan, what I'm about to announce next would be related to why I want to relinquish the position to you. Even if you don't want the throne, you can take care of it in my place and return it to me in the future. Nailan Zhangqian snorted. This bastard just wants to tour the world and have fun with my sister, so dream on. After a few more days he would retire. He did not even want this general's position anymore. He only wanted to take his wife and daughter on a trip, roaming the lands, and enjoying life. As for his son. What was a son? Who cares? There was a helpless look on Feng Tianyu's face. The retired emperor is still alive. The entire Hall of Supreme Harmony instantly fell into a dead silence. Even Nailan Zhangqian stopped making a fuss. The sword slid from his hand and fell onto the ground as a clear and crisp sound resonated in the quiet hall. The retired emperor is still alive. Shocked expressions appeared on the ministers' faces. They were unable to regain their senses for the longest time. There were two legends in Luyun Kingdom. One was Empress Nailan and the other, the retired emperor, Feng Wuhui. With the existence of these two people, no one dared to invade Luyun Kingdom. After the retired emperor passed, Empress Nailan had taken over his responsibility to protect this country. The funeral of the retired emperor had been monumental back then. Even the mausoleum was still existing, but now His Majesty was telling them that the retired emperor was still alive. All these years, I have never dared to let slip the news that the retired emperor was still alive and well. He has too many enemies, the number is so great that they could overturn Luyun Kingdom in an instant. But now, I have nothing more to fear. I want to let it be known that my father is an unparalleled hero. Back then, the people of the reclusive world had murdered our subjects. My father was enraged and had rushed into the reclusive world on his own to force the reclusive world into a contract. He is a hero who has fought for his country and his people. He is the person I respect the most. General Nailan, I wanted you to take the throne because I need to find the retired emperor. He is not only the retired emperor of Luyun Kingdom but also my father. As a son, I would naturally want to search for him. How could I have thrown all of this to you if it were inevitable? In your eyes, am I really such an irresponsible emperor? Chapter 1374, The Pitiful Nailan Zhangqian. For everyone seemed to be in shock. No one spoke for the longest time. The retired emperor had actually made the reclusive world yield. Just how strong was he back then? Perhaps the news was too sudden, even the old general kept quiet. Your Majesty, Nailan Zhangqian's eyes were red. He even lifted his hand to wipe the corners of his eyes while saying, So, you were just trying to search for the retired emperor. I have misunderstood you. I thought your Majesty just wanted to goof off, so you have tossed all these grave tasks to me. Please relax and go on. By the time you return, I will hand Luyun Kingdom back to you in perfect condition. Feng Ruqing glanced at Nailan Zhangqian with pity in her eyes. She wondered if her uncle was too naive to believe in her father's words so easily. It was true that he wanted to search for her grandfather, but the problem was that they had no ways to locate her grandfather. Yet, her father was already throwing his responsibilities to her uncle. It was clear that he only wanted her uncle to work for him in his place. Feng Chen too let out a sigh of relief, thankful that there was still a person to replace him so he would not be left in Luyun Kingdom. His ultimate goal was still Qin Qin. He was not willing to give up on cultivating. Or else, even with their blood relations, they would only drift further apart and he could never pursue her again. As for the last thing I want to announce, it's something to do with the princess, Feng Tianyu continued to say in a low voice. Nailan Zhangqian was stunned as she stared curiously at Feng Tianyu. Wait. Didn't His Majesty say he only had two things to announce? Why is there a third? Why do I have a feeling that I just fell into a trap? I'm sure you all know that the princess is now pregnant, and I assume you'd want to know when the princess and the state preceptor will hold their wedding ceremony. When talking about his daughter and his unborn grandchild, a warm smile graced Feng Tianyu's expression. The ministers looked at each other as they regained their spirits. Could it be that His Majesty would be announcing the date for the prince's wedding ceremony? A wedding ceremony. Hee, Feng Tianyu chuckled. That won't ever happen. My own grandchild will be raised by me, my own daughter will also be raised by me. I have ample resources, so I can take care of them both. That bastard Nan Xian just went and knocked my daughter up without notice. Did he ever consider my feelings as a father? Me for extra chapters. Just thinking that my precious daughter would become a wife, a mother, and even endure the hardships of 10 months of pregnancy makes my heart ache. A slight breeze slipped in from outside as a man in white robes stepped into the hall and paused. His white robes were like snow, his appearance as handsome as a saint, bearing a cold aura like the moon. He was perfect. We will hold the wedding ceremony 3 months later. I can take care of my wife and daughter. Feng Tianyu was speechless. He slammed the desk and stood up in rage. Was this stupid brat trying to provoke him? To think he even trusted him so much. But this bastard ended up kidnapping his precious daughter. What a waste of his trust in him. Nan Xian. She is my daughter. Nan Xian responded calmly, the child in her is my daughter. Feng Tianyu felt like his punch had just landed on cotton. It was ineffective. I won't agree to it, never. Father. Feng Ruqing looked at Feng Tianyu. I slept with the state preceptor, I must take responsibility. Feng Tianyu was speechless. He kept getting the feeling that his daughter sided with the outsider more. However, when he met Feng Ruqing's sincere and resolute gaze, he could only swallow back his words and ask, aggrieved, when do you want to hold the wedding ceremony? Chapter 1375, The Battered and Miserable Qing Zhuai, 3 months later. Feng Tianyu felt frustrated. Ever since his daughter found the state preceptor, she had tossed her father aside and now only had eyes for the state preceptor. Yet, when faced with Feng Ruqing, he could not voice his rejections at all. Make Nan Xian leave for now, and after 3 months, I will host a wedding ceremony for the two of you. This was as far as he could back down. At least for 3 months, he did not want to see this bastard who had kidnapped his precious daughter. Nan Xian smiled calmly. He walked to Feng Ruqing's side, his charming face seemed to be covered in a layer of warm light. I'll wait for you at the Princess Manor. Okay. Feng Ruqing smiled as she replied. Her father was already exasperated. If the state preceptor continued to stay, her father just might die from rage. Nan Xian raised his head to look at Feng Tianyu. For over 10 years, you've been taking care of Qing'er. From here on, I will take good care of her and the child within her in your place. I won't ever let her be harmed again. No matter the situation, Feng Tianyu was still Feng Ruqing's father. So, Nan Xian remained respectful toward him. He hoped that Feng Tianyu could see his resolution as well and hand Qing'er to him after 3 months. After giving his word, Nan Xian turned and left the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Feng Tianyu was gasping for air out of anger as he pointed furiously after Nan Xian. Yenner, did you see that? The state preceptor was provoking me, he was actually provoking. To even provoke him before he left meant that this bastard did not respect him as Feng Ruqing's father. Nailin Yan tried to soothe Feng Tianyu. Don't worry, the wedding ceremony will be prepared by us after all. We could just delay it a bit to make him anxious. Oh, right, don't let Qing'er know about this, she might get upset. Feng Ruqing, who was standing quietly beside him, had no words. Could they not talk about such a scary thing right in front of the person that involved herself? Father, mother, Feng Ruqing rearranged her expression. It's late, I should return to my room. After saying that, she walked out of the Hall of Supreme Harmony to chase after the state preceptor. Feng Chen too followed her out and disappeared from the hall. In the palace courtyard. Among the tall buildings. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing had just walked out when she heard a lively voice call out to her from behind. The voice carried the vigor of youth. Ching-ching, Feng Ruqing stopped. She turned back and saw the young man standing in front of her. The young man had a handsome face with a pinkish scar at the corner of his eyes. It had been there for a long time, so the color had faded to a very light shade. His eyes were clear like water, as if she could see her own reflection in them. Chainer, aren't you keeping father and mother company? Why did you follow me out? Feng Chen suddenly went over and gave Feng Ruqing a tight hug. Feng Ruqing was stunned before putting her hands on Feng Chen's back. Ching-ching, I keep wondering if we've actually known each other before. Otherwise, why would there be me and another person just like you in my dreams? But, I know that no matter what happens, as long as you're safe and healthy, that would be enough for me, Chainer. Feng Ruqing's heart shuddered. She lifted her head to look at the young man. His smile was dazzling, radiant like the sun. He would be this way only in front of her. If he bullies you in the future, the young man paused. I'm willing to let myself be doomed for an eternity to avenge you. No one can bully you, no one. Chapter 1376, The battered and miserable Qing Zhu Tu. Feng Ruqing felt her heart tingle. She slowly closed her eyes. In the past life, Cheer had been like this. When she was aggrieved and harmed, he would ignore everyone else and take her away from that house. Even if they were not related by blood back then, and he was just a kid brought over by her stepmother. But after meeting each other, they could never let go of one another. Be it Cheer or Feng Qin, they were both her family that she could never part with. Chainer, even if I get married in the future, you'll always be my younger brother. No one can ever take your place. Feng Ruqing hugged Feng Qin again gently for a moment before letting go. Chainer, father has prepared a prince's manor for you, you can return to it later. Feng Qin was stunned. He seemed to be in doubt, but finally agreed to it. Okay. He did not need a prince's manor. No matter where she was, that would be his home. But, in the future, once Feng Ruqing had someone else in her home, he would not be able to stay in the princess manor like he used to. I'll take my leave now. If you can't get used to staying in the princess manor, come and find me. Feng Ruqing smiled and patted Feng Qin on his shoulder before turning to leave. Her dress fluttered in the wind, her magnificence was unmatched, her beauty was breathtaking. Not far off, a man stood in the gentle breeze. His white robes swayed slightly. The man was gorgeous, yet cold as the moon. He seemed to have sensed a familiar presence and turned slowly to see the young woman smiling at him. Nan Xian, were you waiting for me? The girl's smile was faint. Nan Xian reached up to brush away the stray hair on her forehead. Yeah. His Majesty was furious. I didn't want it to affect his health, so it's better for me to wait for you outside. But, if he wants to separate us, that will never happen. Once I, Nan Xian, have my eyes on someone, I will never let them go. Feng Ruqing giggled. This man was normally so gentle and kind. But when he was stubborn, he had quite a headstrong temper. Yet, she loved this part of him so much. Me for extra chapters. I am the same. To her, she would rather go without than to settle for something lesser. Once she had set her eyes on somebody, she would never let them go. Feng Ruqing squinted. Nan Xian, since you now belong to me, I need to set down my rules. Nan Xian only kept quiet and stared at her with kind and loving eyes. Although I have never thought of taking responsibility, because of this child in me, I have to take responsibility for you too. Feng Ruqing reached up to touch Nan Xian's face. But, if you make an unforgivable mistake, I'm not the type of woman who would just divorce you. Instead, I'd just murder the cheating couple. Feng Ruqing gave Nan Xian the once-over and smiled brightly. Moreover, you look like you have a lot of inheritance I can take. For some reason, when he was faced with Feng Ruqing's threat, it instead delighted him more. I won't do that. No one else could match up to her, so how could he go wrong? No one else in this world can rival you, he added after a pause. And if there was? There won't be. I don't know how other people would see it, but in my eyes, there never will be. His words were firm, allowing no room for suspicion. Of course I believe you, State Preceptor. Feng Ruqing was full of smiles. We shall wed in 3 months' time. Is there anything you want to say before that? Nan Xian pondered for a while before asking, could you marry off the handmaidens around you? Chapter 1377, The Battered and Miserable Qing Zhu 3y. Feng Ruqing was a little confused. Nan Xian answered with a straight face, in the future, I can take care of everything from food, clothes, to lodging. There will be no need for handmaidens, so why waste that money? Or perhaps you could dispatch them to do some other work. Feng Ruqing felt that this made a lot of sense. She did not need any servants to serve her, and it was a waste of money to keep them. What about this? You'll let Qingling and Luli train under Tang Zi. They've consumed a lot of spirit herb dishes, so now their powers have had visible improvements. Oh, but don't let them know that I've sent them away because I wanted to save on monthly expenses. Unbeknownst to Qingling and Luli, because Feng Ruqing had been hugging them left and right before all this, now that Nan Xian had become her imperial consort, he wanted to kick these 2 servants out of the princess manor the moment a chance arose. Doing so without ever giving them an opportunity to return. Nan Xian looked down, letting his gaze fall on Feng Ruqing's face. The man's gaze was not as cold as before, instead, it carried a warm light. Qinger, let's go back, master. A hysterical voice called out suddenly from behind, interrupting Nan Xian's words and catching Feng Ruqing's attention. Nan Xian's expression chilled slightly as he turned to look at the little gray snake slithering out from the bushes. Yes, a little gray snake. At that moment, Qing Zhu was covered in dust and gray all over. There were even 2 pieces of leaves on his head. His eyes were filled with tears and his voice sounded pained and miserable. He seemed to have suffered countless grievances and hardships. Who are you? Feng Ruqing was stupefied. She stared blankly at the gray-colored tiny snake and kept quiet for a while before asking. This little snake's voice sounds quite familiar, me for extra chapters. Princess, you're too mean. Qing Zhu wailed out loud like a 200-pound child. You guys just left me at that strange Fangzhou mainland without a word. I have finally found an opportunity to escape and have gone through so many hardships and experienced countless grievances to come home, and there was humiliation and anger in Qing Zhu's eyes. And you have actually forgotten about me. I know it, you guys must have found another snake, so you have forgotten about me. I want to run away and never come back, so don't you try to stop me. He turned, crying, and was about to leave. However, he was slow, like he was stalling. After a moment, no one said anything to stop him. Qing Zhu looked back, peeved. I'm really leaving, why aren't you guys stopping me? Once I leave this time, I won't ever come back. Feng Ruqing was still lost and finally regained her senses slowly. She stared absent-mindedly at the miserable and pitiful little snake. You're Qing Zhu. Qing Zhu snorted. Even if you recognize me now, it's no use. I'm angry and won't ever be coaxed. Oh. Feng Ruqing was nonchalant. Where did you run off to all this time? Why didn't you follow the State Preceptor back? Did you run off somewhere with a female snake, and she has pulled a cuckoo on you, that's why you came back so battered. When Feng Ruqing said this, she subconsciously glanced at the 2 green leaves on Qing Zhu's head. Not only was this Qing Zhu cheated on, but he has even brought back the other cuckold's nest. Qing Zhu raged, weren't you the ones who have left me? When you left Fangzhou mainland, you left me behind at the palace and went away yourselves. The young ladies of Luyun Kingdom were not a reserved generation. Whenever they saw an eligible bachelor, they would never sit still. Yet the funny thing was, no young lady showed up at all when the ministers tore down the prince's manor's door. At that moment, in the hall of Paramount, the young ladies were dressed in exquisite and magnificent clothes while their faces were filled with freckles, layered on top of their makeup. They looked almost identical. I heard that the princess has deep connections with Paramount, so she would definitely come here. You'll just have to stay here and you'll be able to meet the princess. Did you know how she has defeated those powerful enemies from other countries? Just one look at her and I have fallen in so deep I can't even pull myself away. I think she's so much cooler than any man in this world. Quick, help me take a look if my freckles have faded. The princess likes freckles, and since I have so many now, she is sure to look my way. And me. The princess complimented a 250-pound fatty before, saying she was cute. I have gained 50 pounds on purpose, so I wonder if the princess will find me cute too. Chapter 1379. The Lu family's drama. As soon as Feng Ruqing stepped into Paramount, hungry eyes darted toward her, shocking her as she quickly took a few steps back. I'm sorry, I must have come to the wrong place. Chainer, let's go. When Jiuming was unconscious, she had no guards at her princess manor, only 2 handmaidens. It was inconvenient to take care of him, so she had left him in Paramount. Today, she was here to visit Jiuming, so she certainly could not bring Nan Xian along. What if Jiuming woke up and snatched Nan Xian from her? Hence, she had come here secretly with Feng Qin without informing Nan Xian, who was busy preparing for the wedding. However, when she saw those adorably chubby girls with freckles all over their faces inside Paramount, her heart shuddered. But before Feng Ruqing could leave, the ladies in the hall abruptly stood up and pounced fiercely at Feng Ruqing like hungry wolves. Feng Qin frowned slightly. To prevent these insane women from harming Feng Ruqing, he took 2 steps forward and shielded Feng Ruqing. The young man had a striking figure, he was youthful and handsome. Even with a light-shaded scar on his face, it did not diminish his charms. When faced with such a gorgeous young man, normal young ladies would not be able to control themselves. They would definitely prey on this youthful lad like hungry wolves. But it was a pity that these ladies were not normal. One of the young ladies, who was almost 200 pounds, easily shoved the young man aside without even looking at him and appeared instantly in front of Feng Ruqing. Feng Chen's expression was cold. He already had his sword drawn out. Fortunately, these ladies still acted appropriately in front of Feng Ruqing and did not touch her at all. Feng Chen's tense features then eased up as he loosened his grip on his long sword. Your Highness. The young lady's face was red, and she fidgeted from shyness. I've admired you for the longest time. Your Highness, I have even gained 100 pounds for you. I wonder if your Highness finds me adorable now. Feng Ruqing was speechless. Me for extra chapters. She stared at Feng Qin, lost. Had she ever said that she liked chubby girls? You girls, Feng Ruqing pondered briefly before continuing, all gained weight. Yeah. The young lady looked delighted. Didn't your Highness compliment a 250 pounds fatty back then, saying she was cute? My target is 250 pounds. Just 1 more month and I'll be able to hit my target. When that time comes, may I enter the princess manor to serve as your handmaiden? That way I could admire your finesse when you train. I can even take the wolf out for a walk and take care of Butler Snow Wolf. Enriching was reluctant to deal a blow to this young lady. She let out a soft sigh. Although chubbiness really is adorable, the delight in the young lad's eyes grew. She stared at Enriching unblinkingly. But Enriching paused slightly. If you get too chubby, it's not good for your health and you can't cultivate. So, you guys can see that I've slimmed down too. There's no need for your girls to gain weight, being healthy is the most important. The young lad's eyes were clear like stars. It was easy to tell that she was a beauty back when she was slim. Yet, because of Enriching's casual comment back then, these young ladies had actually taken her seriously. Enriching had an urge to cry, but the tears did not come. When she had said those words back then, she had never imagined that something like this would happen. You girls cannot do this in the future, do you understand? Enriching saw that these young ladies still looked lost, so she made her tone a little stricter. Don't harm your bodies like this.